All right, listen up, cabbies. I got your assignments. Riga, 643. Wheeler, 148. Nato, 804. And all of you. You need to join host HP and Father Malone as they examine one of the greatest sitcoms in television history, Taxi. In Night, Mr. Walters, a Taxi podcast. Banter, zero, like your boxing record.
Night, Mr. Walters.
We're in Wayne Media.
Welcome back to Midnight Viewing, the horror anthology podcast, where this season we're taking a look at George Romero's 1980s series, Tales from the Darkside. Sharing the Midnight View with me are the Culture Cast, Chris Stashu.
I don't know how to tell you guys this, but I practice a lot of voodoo in my spare time.
Well, that's perfect. Also joining us is the Projection Booth's Mike White.
Oh, this is far above the cost of rubies.
Okay, and tonight we are taking a look at 2 episodes from season 2. Those are Ring Around the Redhead and Parlor Floor Front. Ring Around the Redhead is season 2, episode 3. This originally aired on October the 13th, 1985. Written by Ted Gershuni from a story by John D. MacDonald. Yes, that John D. MacDonald. Directed by Ted Gershuni and starring John Hurd and Penelope Ann Miller. This is the story of inventor who finds a Earth after an earthquake, a hole opens up in his house. That's a portal to another dimension, and he takes a girl out of it and spends the time teaching her English. And then, I don't know, other things happen too. There's a lot going on in this episode. I'm going to throw it on over to you, Mike.
Thank God it was Mike and not me.
I never knew that John D. MacDonald wrote sci-fi, and this story kind of makes me doubt that he did write sci-fi. The whole thing of how our main character is an inventor, but then he doesn't invent anything during the whole episode. Instead, a volcano opens in his floor, and there is this ring that I thought was part of the volcano, but then at one part, Jimbo pulls out the ring. I'm like, oh, I thought that was part and parcel of this whole volcano thing because they keep twisting it around and it's opening other dimensions. I was getting a little Quantum Mania feel from this. This episode had everything going for it. Penelope Ann Miller, John Hurd. I love John Hurd doing a great job in here. John D. MacDonald, which I was like, oh, great. Big shot in the arm. Yeah, what a mess this one was. And then to kind of turn it into this whole, I'm going to take this girl from this other dimension and have to teach her all of our stuff, but then she's actually way smarter than I am anyway. So yeah, she was a little manic pixie dream girl for me, and the way that he has to save her and all this. And oh yeah, we just play with these rubies all over the place. And I didn't even realize that was the same dimension, but because I guess there's all kinds of dimensions he can do, and it's just the one really that we interact with. And I thought for sure that we were going to get all kinds of adventures, him going into the portal maybe, or pulling other things out. But 2 things, rubies and her, and then you got some busted up thermometers. Chris, what did you think of this one?
I'm glad you had to answer first. Boy.
Oh, and it's all a death row, right? Death row confession. Yeah, I forgot about the framing story. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, you forgot about the best part. Yeah, it's like beyond unintelligible for the most part. I don't understand what the point of this episode's story is. It's one of those things where I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I know John D. MacDonald can write, but to your apropos point, Mike doesn't fucking could have convinced me otherwise, but this horse shit, like, it's really bad, and it's bad in a way that I think it makes me appreciate that episode of, maybe it was Twilight Zone or Night Gallery, the Joe Penny episode where he's like in prison and he goes back in time by playing the piano.
Oh, with the piano. Yeah, that was actually pretty good compared to this, especially.
Speaking of people from The Sopranos being in anthology shows, Joe Penny in this episode, John Hurd in that episode, and John Hurd in this episode. I wanted to like this, but I don't understand what the point is, and the fact that it's Deus Ex Earthquake is just fucking bizarre. There was an earthquake and then there was a volcano in my basement. Okay. That's all I could say was, okay, it's bizarre. It's strange. They make some choices. I don't think the choices work very well. And I mean, Penelope Ann Miller is cute, but I mean, her doing a Land of the Lost character thing or Encino Woman, I guess. It's just kind of, I don't know. I'm surprised they spent 22 minutes doing this episode. That's for sure.
A death sentence in anthology television always seems to be 3 days after the crime, as opposed to several years of decades of trials. By then, I think he might have told this story a few times. And I bet those rubies would have been raising some other eyebrows, too, about what was actually going on in that house. He was convicted so quickly without actually telling his story. That's a bit unusual. The entire episode, the pacing of it felt as if we were watching a previously on Tales from the Darkside. It felt like a summation of a larger, longer episode and or movie. Why did we have a wraparound segment at all? What are we wasting our time with this exposition dump? And that ultimately is the problem with the episode. This is a fucking radio play. They jog us through like huge plot points. Well, then a cloud came out and attacked him. Really? That sounds exciting. I wonder if they could show that on a device that I can watch in my home.
I liked this episode more when it was Jin No Chaser.
Because
it has that same
moments ago.
Yeah.
And it has that same framing device too, of a character talking directly to the camera, essentially. So,
and you know what? You're right, Mike. Like, why is there even a volcano? If the ring if you can remove it, I too thought, oh, this is part of that thing. Oh, it's like a portal or something. Hey, just take it out. Go put it in your closet. How about he just finds that ring?
That he's doing depth experiments. That's his whole thing. Is, oh yeah, then I'm like lowering this anchor in here. Okay, it must go pretty deep. Do you ever touch ground? Like, what's going on? You know, and then he says he did 170 probes, and I'm like, in how long? This morning? What are you doing with this?
There's very little logical sense being put on display here. I did like as much as I did not like the wraparound kind of death row bit, I did like how stormy they made the Noir jail. Like at a certain point, they got like a lightning storm going on, which always looks bad usually, but I thought it looked great here. So there are aspects of this that I liked a lot, including all of the performances, like how could you not? Penelope Ann Miller, is that her name? I run super hot and cold on her. In the right role, she's charming as fuck, but and then she's in Carlito's Way, and you're like, what is she doing here?
Oh, yeah, she's perfect in The Gun in Betty Lou's Handbag, but something like this, I'm like, this works. But yeah, when you put her in a meaty role like Carlito's Way, you're like, huh? Like, she's no Michelle Pfeiffer.
Or The Relic.
Oh, God, The Relic. I mean, I can't get past Tom Sizemore. He's the star of the show for me in that one.
Well, I have so many feelings about that film that have more to do with the books than anything else. But Penelope Ann Miller's fine here comparatively. I think.
Oh yeah, if you like, who is it? Lincoln Rhymes. Those.
Oh yeah, Lincoln. Preston and Childs.
There you go. Yeah, if you like them, you're not going to like them.
No, and Penelope Ann Miller is actually like the least offensive part of that movie. She's fine here. You said Manic Pixie Dream Girl. It's very much that like specific kind of like fish out of water character. It reminded me of a ton of characters we've seen a million other times before. And again, like the weird moment where she can stop time and intercede and stop him from being executed. Like what in the holy fuck is going on here? So he is on death row because Jimbo disappeared.
Correct. Yeah, the antagonist of the piece who came and stole the ring and took the rubies and took that ring. He took. I love that he gets two scenes basically in a row. Taking this ring, I'm back. Take this ring away from me.
And again, like we all know in the reality of a real world, if they don't find the body, they're not going to just jail someone. It's John Hurt is there's a quick turnaround here, apparently, that this guy is just being executed. Like, what? You were tried, convicted, and now they're executing you a week later. Whoa, what world are we? The perfect prison system, apparently.
It's called habeas corpus for a reason.
I guess so.
Mike, like you said, he's an inventor, but we never see him inventing anything. We don't see him testing anything at all. What we do get is suddenly he's teaching her planets and English and penmanship. He's singing her to sleep, which was not at all uncomfortable.
He invented a bucket on a rope that he could lower into a hole in the ground. He invented that. He's an inventor.
You ever see that short film with the Australian with the hole in the ground and the guy, he's lowering a bucket into it. He keeps getting jewels sent back up to him for things that he's sending down. And at a certain point, he gets in the thing and goes down and they send up like all the jewels. This was delicious. Send more.
Haven't seen that one.
Really good. Reminded me too much of this. And unfortunately, I like that one better. Because I was just thinking, once he starts teaching her, I'm like, is this where we're going? Is this sort of going to be like some sort of Frankenstein thing? And like once her learning accelerated and she was outpacing him and reading all of his science books, I'm like, oh, is this going to be some like doomsday thing? Like you're going to give us something to give us a bit of a bite at the end here. But no, they give us, and there's nothing wrong with a romantic ending if you earned that. But this thing is so scattershot and weird. It's 20 different genres like slapping up against each other for no good reason. And trying to cram it all into 22 minutes, like, I mean, look, I admire the attempt, A for effort, but this one's a mess. And
well, it's not only is it a mess, it's like it's an incomprehensible mess. I don't understand why this story took 22 minutes to tell. It's not a blackout sketch because we've leveled that against this show, me specifically, plenty of times. This is just one of the more just like water treading, wheel spinning episodes of this show I've ever seen. I don't understand the point of this episode.
This episode
wasn't there an episode where it's like a guy was Scott Wilson went to a nuclear world or something? You remember that? Scott Wilson looked through the portal into the nuclear world. And do you remember that from Night Gallery? Was that a Night Gallery episode? This is the closest thing to that. You remember what I'm talking about? Where it's a world. We're a world of peace now. And it's a fish out of water story. It's like, why are we telling these stories? Who is this for?
Yeah, if it was Scott Wilson, would have had to have been Twilight Zone rather than I mean, he's old or was old, but not that old.
Oh, we got anything more? Oh, yeah, I got something more to say about this because here's the thing: like with all the time spent on all of these different avenues when they could have just been telling us one story the whole time. At the end, we have time to like slow walk through the fucking prison, slow walk to the chair, and then sort of lovingly like close-ups of him being strapped in and the diodes being placed on him. Like, we got time for this too? I don't know. It felt like the end of an after-school special too.
Well, at the end, he's saved because he's worth saving, apparently.
Good God, man.
Yeah, it's just, sure. Okay. I sometimes I fail to see what they were getting at. What's the point of the story here? Is there some sort of metaphor you're getting at or some sort of homily you're trying to get across? Nope. It's just stupid. It just wastes its time and our time. And John Hurd, unfortunately, that's the biggest shame here. This is the only time John Hurd is in Tales from the Darkside. Oops. Okay.
Yeah, halfway through when that guy takes the ring, when he brings it back, he starts babbling like this Lovecraftian tale that like it's a portal to a whole other horrible place, and there are things out there. And where's that? Why?
Well, they imply it with the frayed wire that's like something frayed to this cord. And it's like, we're never going to see it because the show has no budget. There's a reason we didn't see what's in the portal because the budgetary restrictions may apply.
Well, I'll tell you where the budget comes in. It's that lavish Last Supper that he gets on death row with 2 bananas and an apple and maybe some green beans on there. I mean, that looked like it must have cost a lot. And that's how I want to go out. 2 bananas and an apple, please.
Well, he requested it, that's how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't blame it even himself.
And that reporter / lawyer, whoever, who just gives him the stink face like 90% of the time she's on screen.
My God, what a useless character. What a whole useless like waste of expositional time. It drove me crazy. If this were not based on a previously written short story, I would assume that this was an episode cobbled together of everyone's filmable idea for the season.
All the tropes rolled into one.
Yeah,
rolled into one.
That's a good idea, but you don't want to do a whole episode about that. Put it in the Ring Around the Redhead episode.
This is like what is it called when you go to the gas station and get all the sodas together, like Suicide? It's like that. It's all the things mixed together, and boy, it doesn't taste good at all.
I am curious to read the original short story just to see what that was like, because I do like John D. McDonald so much, but I'm not rushing out to get it.
No, but his lawyer certainly looked Russian. All right. Next up, we're talking about Parlor Floor Front. Parlor is spelled with the British U, so it makes it look like Parlour in my mind. So every time I look at it, I got Parlor Floor Front. Makes it very hard to say. Anyway, season 2, episode 4. This originally aired on October the 20th, 1985. Written by Carol Lucia Satrina and directed by Richard Friedman. This one stars Adolf Caesar, Rosetta Lenoir, and Donna Bullock, which is kind of a letdown to say after the previous 2 names. This is a story about 2 horrible fucking yuppie pieces of shit trying to oust a lifelong tenant of their newly purchased home. Oh, and Voodoo. What'd you think of this one, Chris?
Boy, we found it. The episode with the most indefensible fucking characters known to man. They're here, folks. What in God's name is going on with this show? I mean, talk about painting with the broadest of broad brushes. My Lord. Donna Bullock and here's the name you should have said, Father Malone. You want to keep those names up. John Colonius, which sounds straight out of Roman Empire Central Casting. Such a strange episode. The 2 main characters are fucking assholes of the highest order. They're clearly trafficking in what was going on in the 80s in New York City with rent control and all of that. And I mean, pretty apropos to be going towards real world events. I'm not sure they had a single fucking thing to say about them, but hey, they're trafficking in real world things that are happening. This was pretty well suited to be the secondary episode that we're talking about on this episode of this show, given what we just talked about. I find this to be, again, what was the point of this story? We've seen this a bunch of other times, a bunch of different other ways, and this is not the best way it's been done. This is just another time, is what this feels like. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, this episode keeps trying to pull the rug out from under you, where yeah, these are horrible. The wife is worse than the man, but the man is pretty bad as well. This whole thing of how she sets up Adolf Caesar to, make her fall, and then she lies that she was carrying a baby, and I'm just like, what? Oh gosh, that's horrible. Yeah, and she killed a cat in order to prove out that he caused a curse or something. And I'm like, what? Oh man, it is rough. And I love Adolf Caesar. I don't know if you guys saw A Soldier Story.
Oh yeah,
he's fucking fantastic in that movie. That's one of those performances between him and who is it, Howard D. Rollins that's in there, or Henry D. Rollins?
Harold
Henry Rollins, the punk rock singer.
Black Flag?
Black Flag's own Henry Rollins, where he's portraying this black soldier who's coming in. It's really weird the way that he does it, all in blackface the entire time. And with that
he's the
accent,
dude disguised as a dude pretending to be another dude.
Yeah, but Adolf Caesar in that movie and Rollins are just freaking amazing. And it was one of those where I was like, oh, I want to see more of this guy. And then when this episode comes up, I'm like, oh, I didn't know he did a Tales from the Dark Side. Oh, this is great. And then when he starts speaking with that Jamaican accent, it's okay. I'm going to let this pass. All right. Okay. And yeah, then it becomes a zombie story at the end. And I was like, all right, it's still not as scary as not seeing the zombie in the first episode of Night Gallery with Roddy McDowell losing his absolute mind. I was kind of hoping that she would lose her mind in this one, and that we would maybe see the results of her with her, maybe her whole fingers pulled off or something. But I wanted to see her get her comeuppance more than what we got.
She took the ring off of her finger gingerly, apparently, and left her be.
Oh, thank you. Here you go.
It's like, what was the reason you died? Because it seems like the ring was taken very quickly and easily.
And why did she feel that she had to take the ring? Oh, never mind. Sorry. I'm asking for logic in this episode.
Yeah, this episode is dangerously close to a Tales from the Crypt segment from the film, Poetic Justice with Peter Cushing.
Oh, yeah.
where people on a block are trying to oust the old man because he's a filthy old man, and they do all these dirty tricks to get him out of there, and then he finally hangs himself. He's so ostracized and cut off from life from these assholes. That is one of my favorite segments of any filmed entertainment and anthology series.
Is that the one where they end up being in the dark and there's like razor blades on the wall and they're in a very tight...
That is Tales. That's the same movie, Tales from the Crypt, the Amicus production, but that's a further segment.
Okay. Yeah. That's really the only that, and isn't there a monkey's paw in that one? I think those are the only ones.
That's Vault of Horror.
Okay.
Is it Vault of Horror? No, it might be Tales from the Crypt. But yeah, the Poetic Justice segment with Peter Cushing. That's the one. If there's ever an image shown from that movie, it's him rising from the grave, the Grimsdyke zombie, and that's the payoff there. That sort of inspired Father's Day and in Creep Show, that one. Like those two are of a piece, and not necessarily of equal measure, because Peter Cushing is heartbreaking in that thing. What both of those things are, though, is really good, and this thing is really not. I did not see the twist that it was the wife doing this to Adolf Caesar. I thought it was strictly voodoo occurring. So I was happily surprised and then completely pissed, because it should have been a fucking voodoo fantasia in this episode. They could have really gone for it, made something really scary instead of just evil people who need to get their comeuppance. Like I like she fakes a miscarriage. Like it's so fucking crazy. Oh my God, she's
fucking psycho. I mean, she's like the Karen.
When she's they're going to have it. Adolf Caesar inexplicably hangs himself, and that's where it gets too close to a parallel to the Tales from the Crypt episode. There's no reason he should have done that. Like maybe carted off to prison, something. But that was stupid. But nevertheless, when they're having the viewing of his body in the apartment, and she's upstairs bitching about people coming to this man that she drove to suicide. Oh my God. I want that. You're correct, Mike, in your early assessment that there's no comeuppance here, even closely commensurate to who this fucking character was in this episode. I really wanted, like at the last episode, I wanted somebody to get it. This one, I wanted them to get it. Tales from the Darkside is really embracing the EC. We said it's mean-spirited, but I did find myself wondering why we're spending any amount of time with these people when we have Adolf Caesar downstairs and we could spend time with him being wounded by these people. That's where the Tales from the Crypt one gets it right, because we spend all of our time with Peter Cushing, and only peripherally we see these people plotting against him. Here, they were kind of the heroes of the piece, and then they don't even get a hero's send-off. They're just sort of dead.
Yeah, it's fucking weird to me the way that the characters of the upstairs people are portrayed, because am I supposed to feel bad for them? Episode, what do you want from me? I'm not going to feel bad for these two white devils, okay? Like that's the portrayal of the character. It's like very on the nose, very obvious. The only thing, if Donna Bullock had been blonde and blue-eyed, it would have been a little bit more exactly what it needed to be, but yeah, they're so one note that you can only go so far with it before you're just like stomping the same ground over and over again. And that's what this ultimately felt like. It felt like it was just stomping down the same ground. It's like, I get that they're terrible. I understood that from the first singular moment that we see them on screen. They're coded very specifically terrible. So yeah, to your point, Mike, like I don't feel like these characters get what they deserve at all. I feel like it's just to see Donna Bullock on the bed kind of scared stiff is kind of a bummer, really.
Yeah, give me that reaction shot. No, by no means. I mean, yeah, there were times where I'm like, is the husband in on it? Because she will complain to him about things, and then later on it feels like, oh, he was aware of this the whole time, but I guess not, or she let him know, because there are some things where he doesn't realize that she's lying, and then other times where I think he does realize.
Right. Yeah. And again, like he's such a dope too, on top of everything else. He doesn't realize it until it's effectively too late, and then he just leaves. And he
needs his comeuppance as well, because
he just gets away. He just walks away. Okay, sure. Fine. Yeah, to put it all on Donna Bullock, I mean, I get it from the character being the repugnant piece of shit, but it's not enough. It's not enough. It's so not enough that I don't know, they went so far in one direction they couldn't course correct enough is what it feels like. You push the dial so far with these characters. I'm surprised they didn't have them drop some sort of slur.
Yeah.
I mean, they were like one step away from having them drop like an 80s level slur. I'm surprised they didn't go there because again, they were pushed so far in that direction that it needed to be Tales from the Crypt for them to actually get their comeuppance. Tales from the Darkside's not a dark enough show for them to get the comeuppance the way these characters were painted.
No, and it's network television too. I don't want it's syndicated, but this is on Sunday nights.
Right.
Yeah, I was waiting for well, you know how those people are, one of those things.
Right, yeah. I mean, I was half expecting it because, again, like, it was trafficking in real world events. I mean, things that we've heard about people have been doing, and especially in places like New York, where I'm assuming this is set. East Coast episode, Father Malone?
Oh, yeah. Ernest Dickerson, I believe.
Yep. Again, I appreciate where they're coming from, but they don't nail this at all.
Rosetta Lenoir, why are you just sitting there while he's hanging? Call the coroner. Call the ambulance.
No, that was my favorite part. Yes. That was like, look what you did to him. That's a body just hanging there, like
right there. Look at my father.
Yeah, like what in God's name? Like oh, shit. And she's already wearing mourning clothes too. So did she go home after she saw him hanging there and wear black clothes so that she could be found waiting? It's so bizarre. It's Yep. Nope.
And the episode is one confession after another from this horrible wife. Like every couple of scenes, she's like, "Oh, by the way, that was me." And then by the third or fourth time, the husband he's surprised at all. I love, by the way, when he goes to leave her, he grabs his essentials to go. He takes this leather satchel and he puts in one pair of boxer shorts and he's like, "I'm on my way."
I'm just wearing the clothes on my back now.
And by the way, and speaking of the ring that she needs to have back because we need to get her downstairs and in front of the body and whatever. A minute ago, she threw the ring at him like it was nothing. Adolf said, "Just take the fucking thing. Just get out of here." And suddenly it's important. Oh, I need that back now. Don't be clumsy at the end of an already trying episode. We're trying to work with you, Darkside.
Yeah, this episode feels like it is working against the audience at every turn to just, again, be like, well, we set up these really terrible people, but we don't really care enough to have their story play out in a satisfying way. Because, again, they could have had them really get their comeuppance. They don't. We saw a guy just be forced to live forever. And this episode, why bother?
Let's not be mean about it.
Right. Let's not be mean to these two people that just got a guy to kill himself because he was trying to be evicted from where he lives and couldn't find somewhere else to live. Like, yeah, they don't deserve it. We promise.
So Adolf Caesar breaks a vase that the husband then extorts half the price of the vase out of him. And then the wife says, "No, that was my fault. I set that up." And she said, they believe there's a curse. So she's saying, "You have to go give that money back." And he's saying, "No, it's too embarrassing." And here's what I wrote. It's too embarrassing. It wasn't embarrassing to dock this man his minimum wage you're forcing him to accept for back-breaking work. He says, nobody else will come do this work. While, by the way, they're hounding him to leave the house that he's lived in for decades. This sweet old man. Fuck these people in the ass. That was my final notation on these characters in this episode.
And can I say, though, because I alluded to the idea of, like you said, Mike, like those people. Did he have to be black? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to do this and you're going to do this, do it all the way or don't do it at all. And don't cast African-American actors and then just like halfway do this shit. Because you're trafficking and trading in things that are real world things. And it feels a little weak in the knees to be like, well, we're going to cast an African-American actor, two African-American actors, and then this woman just has the ring gingerly taken off of her finger after she forces this guy to commit suicide. What the fuck?
It's a mishmash, a hodgepodge.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? I honestly, if Adolf Caesar showed up in any episode, like he showed up and said, "I'll take any episode," you would just put him in any episode. Like it doesn't need to be a black character. This should just be because this is a class thing going on here. This is
right.
This very well could have been anywhere USA with these rich white assholes kicking out the locals.
It just feels worse is what I'm getting at. It feels worse, and the episode feels worse because of it not taking the actual steps it needs to take to have a satisfying conclusion to these two fucking clowns of characters.
Also, don't do voodoo on the stairs and close your door when you do voodoo.
Yeah.
Is it voodoo or Obeah? That's the real question. Or Santeria.
This is syndicated American television. It's voodoo.
It's always voodoo, baby.
You're saying hide your voodoo or people will. This will happen.
Where's James Remar at getting his head cut off? That's all I can think of. And Whoopi Goldberg, Father Malone.
We're gonna have to do. I'm gonna have to do a special series just on the horrible portrayals of voodoo and all the anthology series over the years, because it is rife with them.
Yeah,
ripe with them.
Well, you can even go back to Live and Let Die, and then check out that Kolchak episode we did forever ago.
Oh yeah!
Too.
Oh my God!
Yeah, Horror in the Heights, or no, not Horror in the Heights. I can't remember
it was the mobsters with the zombies, right?
Yeah. Well, and Antonio Fargas, I think, is in that one.
I think you're right.
Wasn't that one written by David Chase?
I think so.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah. Purveyor of Italian American stereotypes.
Undead and ghosts.
Yeah. Yeah. I to your point, Father Malone, this is a very much a Tales from the Crypt episode masquerading as a Tales from the Darkside episode, which means it's not going to have the emotional punch that it could theoretically have. Not saying Tales from the Crypt would have done it better, because categorically they never did.
No, I disagree. If Tales from the Crypt had taken over for the last third of this episode, then it would have. I might be recommending this episode right now.
I'm just more speaking to the idea that they never did the voodoo stuff right, though.
Right,
is more what I'm getting at.
But the practical effects that they would have wreaked upon these two would have been fucking fantastic and so well deserved.
That's true, but I was more speaking to the idea that you and I both know they never did a single voodoo episode right on that show, and they had 7 seasons to do it. They fucked it up every single fucking time. Clancy Brown's episode, James Remar's episode. There was an episode with a disembodied head at one point. Every time they just fucked it up so hard.
Not as bad as this, or is this as bad as that? I like this one more than those.
This was, what this had and those didn't. This is only 22 minutes long.
Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Praise Baron Samdi. Speaking of Live and Let Die. Now,
damning with faint praise, as they would say.
On the next episode of Midnight Viewing, we'll be taking a look at 2 more episodes from season 2. These are actually 2 rather seminal episodes of the entire series. Those are Halloween Candy and The Satanic Piano. Midnight Viewing, the horror anthology podcast, is a proud member of Weirding Way Media Group, and our theme song was composed by HP. Until next time, what are you working on? Where can people find it? Crustaceo.
Well, if you want to find myself and the stage name that I go by down at the local strip club, Satanic Candy, you can find all of that over at weirdingwaymedia.com. Yeah, everything I work on can be found there. What about you, Mike White?
Well, it's weird. It's kind of a coincidence. Everything that I do can also be found at weirdingwaymedia.com, except for the aforementioned James Bond podcast that we kind of alluded to there with a mention of Live and Let Die. And we'll have Father Malone on that episode talking about the blaxploitation movie that was Live and Let Die over at Rankin on Bond, which is available via both Chris and I's Patreon. You come on over, join at the $10 and above level, and you get to hear us talk about James Bond and hear a little bit more Father Malone there.
Yeah, go seek that episode out. I had a really good time talking about that, and Live and Let Die is great. Anyway, go check that out for them over there, and keep tuning in here to Midnight Viewing, the horror anthology podcast, or Midnight Viewing Anthologies Attack, or Midnight Viewing Father Malone's Weekly Roundup. We got a bunch of shows, and they're all available for you, but they're also available early and commercial free over at patreon.com Father Malone. That's where you can find those. Until next time, try to enjoy the daylight. Midnight Viewing, the horror anthology podcast, is a proud member of Weirding Way Media. Our theme song was composed by HP with an assist from Donald Rubenstein and Erica Lindsay. If you want to hear these episodes early and commercial free, become a patron over at patreon.com/Father Malone. Not only are the episodes up early, but we have extended interviews and bonus podcasts where we spotlight the best episodes of horror anthologies from every series. But if you just like the show and want to help, please share it with your friends and give us a rating on your favorite podcatcher. Together we'll keep journeying through the places that are just as real, but not as brightly lit.